welcome back to Christy Lee Independent Media. There was a whole lot of talk in the news, both the regime media and conservative media, about what the biggest national security risk could be. I mean, because let's face it, we're like poking our heads everywhere into all kinds of conflicts now with this administration. So what is, or should we say, who is the biggest national security threat? We're going to be talking about that with my guest in just a moment. His name is Jeff Crouere. It's very French, New Orleans. He's from New Orleans. We're going to talk about that too. He's author of America's Last Chance, and he just wrote an article about who the biggest national threat is. So we're going to bring him in. Welcome to my show, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming back on.
Hey, Christy, thanks for having me.
You bet. So like I said, we are going to be talking about some serious stuff, but let's keep it light to start off with. You said born and raised in New Orleans?
Yeah, New Orleans native. And right now I live in the suburbs of New Orleans, a little place called Metairie. So it's real close, like right next door to New Orleans. And the radio station is in New Orleans. And we still love New Orleans, but the politics in New Orleans is very woke. This, just like all the big cities. And the suburban area is more conservative, certainly easier to make a living. And that's why I live out here now, but grew up in New Orleans, and our radio station is in New Orleans. So a lot of the businesses I work with are in New Orleans. So still very much a New Orleanian.
Well, that's very cool. The last time I had Jeff on, we had talked about how it was like on my bucket list to go to New Orleans because I just never have been. And I just think it's like, seems like such a cool place, like rich in history. And so I told him, update, it looks like we're going to be heading that way on a road trip this summer. I actually don't know exactly when. My husband's planning all that out, but we're crazy. And we're going to bring my 3 teenagers and my infant who is now four months old, but by summer she'll be a little bit older, on the road in a van and do it right. So we'll try and make a pit stop and visit you, Jeff. What's the biggest thing that we need to do in New Orleans? Am I supposed to say it like that?
Eat good food. Eat good food. There are restaurants all over the place. They're outstanding. We're known for the best dining in the country. Really, we've got beignets, we've got crawfish, we've got all the awesome char-grilled oysters. New Orleans is known for great gumbo and jambalaya and all kinds of dishes.
Food is the thing to do in New Orleans.
So we'll go to a nice restaurant. I'll bring my wife and meet your family, and that'll be a lot of fun.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Well, let's dig into the topic of the day. Like I said, there's so much chaos and conflict surrounding us a lot of times that you do see headlines that infer what the biggest national security threat could be. And you just wrote an article, and it's not a what, but it is actually a who that you wrote a whole article on why it is actually Joe Biden that is the biggest national security threat to America right now. And so take me through why you feel that is.
Well, there are a lot of reasons, Christy. I would say number one is that Joe Biden inherited a secure border. And we had been making a lot of progress under President Trump. And he reversed all the policies. He stopped construction of the border wall. And in the 3 years of Joe Biden, conservative estimates are that about 10.3 million undocumented migrants, illegals, have come into the country. And that includes about 2 million approximately, or what they call gotaways, and people that were not processed and not go through a port of entry and have really escaped into the country. Now, my contention is that among these 10.3 million, you've got fine people looking to improve their way of life, obviously coming here for a better way of life. But you've got drug cartel members, you've got criminals, and you've got terrorists. I've got no doubt that terrorists are in here. And I think he has put us all at tremendous risk by having an open border. I mean, I don't know of any other country in the world that has an open border like us. And it is really, I think, a dereliction of duty I think it's an impeachable offense. And I think it's something that the American people are growing more and more outraged about. My latest column is that America's reaching an open border boiling point. And what happened, of course, with the horrific murder of a student in Athens, Georgia, by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. So it's out of control. I mean, we don't have a handle on this. And that is just one of the reasons why I think Joe Biden is our biggest national security threat.
Well, before we go into other reasons of why he might be a national security threat, you did write this other article about what you think the goal of an open border is. And it's to turn my great state of Texas blue, is what you think it is. Now, if you told anybody in the mainstream this or the regime media this, they'd say, Jeff, you are pushing a conspiracy theory. It sounds like some kind of a great replacement theory. What do you say to that?
I say to this argument that I hear, Christy, is that look at what happened in California and Arizona and New Mexico and Nevada. These are states that historically were Republican. And then you've had an influx of immigrants, both legal and illegal, and those states have all moved toward the Democrat column. Texas is a massive state with massive number of electoral votes, big representation in Congress, most important state that the Republicans now have a sort of bare minimum control of. And I think Democrats see the possibility of turning it blue, turning it Democrat, because roughly of the Hispanic voters in this country, 3 out of 4 vote Democrat. And not all that are coming in here are Hispanic, but a good number of them. And I think they believe that these folks, once they get IDs, become voters, will be voting more and more and more Democrat. Demography is destiny. And I do think that is their goal. And once they turn Texas blue, that's it. They've got a lock on the Congress, a lock on the presidency, and it's a game over for Republicans. They can't possibly win without Texas. Last time Republicans won without the state of Texas, other than the fluke election of 1968, was when George Wallace took a lot of third-party votes, was 1924. So it's really part of a coalition that Republicans need to win. And Democrats, I think, have their sights on it. I really think that.
Well, again, and just to remind folks that they claim that this theory of what we speak of, that they're bringing in votes, is part of a great replacement theory, a conspiracy theory. And they say it's racist and all of these things. But the clause that you just said, a demographic destiny, you can find clips of them saying this over and over again. There's been montages of them saying this. The New York Times wrote an article about the great replacement theory, like saying that this is something that would be good for the Democrats. So it's just another example of a lie that they push, a projection to put this on folks that are concerned about this being a motivation, saying that it's something that they came up with when really they were admitting it and proud of it until it wasn't convenient for people to notice. But as far as, go ahead.
They're very proud. They're very proud of it. And they're very excited about the future possibilities for their party. And they believe that it's all trending in their direction. And I think it is in some respects. I think it is.
We're already seeing videos of illegal immigrants being interviewed, and that the interviewer will say, who are you going to vote for? And they say Joe Biden. Never mind that they're not supposed to be allowed to vote. They're here illegally. But who is it that's giving them this impression that they are allowed to vote for Joe Biden? What do you think?
I think whoever's helping them get in here, I think people that are processing them and moving them around, the media, people that they're interacting with, these organizations that are helping them. I mean, I think they are getting a lot of hopes that they can get involved, make money, get jobs, vote. And of course, my view is that all of this is very harmful to our country because these folks that are coming in, and again, many of them are coming in here for good reasons. They want a better quality of life, but it depresses wages, takes jobs away from Americans. And also we have people that are coming in here with really criminal intent. And we just look at Venezuela. I think Venezuela has emptied out a lot of their prisons and sent those people here. And then we see a lot of the crime up in New York, the attacks on police officers. Those are migrants from Venezuela. And we saw it with the murder of the nursing student, Laken Riley, just the other day in Georgia. So it's a concern. It should be a concern to every American.
Yeah, and to that end, I mean, the whole point being, bring it back to your article. And again, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Jeff Crouere. He's author of America's Last Stand, and he just wrote this article about what he thinks is America's greatest national security threat, which is Joe Biden himself. But we were specifically talking about the immigration angle. And interestingly, I was just recently, a couple weeks ago, at an event that Governor Abbott spoke at. And what I think often gets missed in the mainstream or regime media, what we now call it, is that this isn't a fear tactic. This isn't like fear porn, if you will. There's actual terrorists that are getting into this country that have been apprehended, and he can provide the evidence of that. And
Right.
And just think about that. If they're apprehending all of these people that are on a terrorist watch list, what about the gotaways, right?
Right. Bingo. That's exactly right. And when you got 2 million gotaways, how many of those are terrorists? And you got to think, if they're trying to evade any kind of detection, that they might have nefarious intent, and they could be either criminals, drug cartel members, terrorists, smuggling weapons, drugs, bombs. Who knows? And there's so many ways we can be attacked, whether it be an EMP attack on our electrical grid, attack on our infrastructure. It's scary to look at the possibilities. And I also worry, Christy, whether this administration is focused on the problem, or are they focused on January 6th and MAGA supporters? Is their focus really on trying to round up all the people who were at the Capitol 3 years ago? And I know here in the New Orleans area, they just arrested somebody. And I'm thinking, wow, we're arresting somebody that stepped foot into the Capitol, and we're allowing 10 million people to come in here, and who knows how many are terrorists. I think they need to focus on more important threats to our country.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's so many elements to this that we don't have time to even dig into as far as this immigration angle. I mean, the devastating stories of how this perpetuates child trafficking, human trafficking, right. The fentanyl that's coming in, young people are dying. That all gets missed and passed over when people are saying, oh, we need to be compassionate. Other people deserve the American dream. Well, we have a legal way to do that. And if we're going to talk about being compassionate, then it's the opposite of compassionate, the way these people are coming in. You know, my husband and I have been at the border ourselves, and it was heartbreaking. It was emotional because there were so many unanswered questions when you would see babies with just a diaper on and wondering who they were being passed off to. And is that the child's father? I mean, just so many questions. There's just, I mean, and this is a situation where, again, we have to get pat downs. We have to go through all of these steps at an airport, and this isn't the case for them. Right. We haven't even touched upon that angle of it.
And you know, Christy, it's one thing to look at how do these people get here from 174 nations all over the world. Many of them look like they're very poor. How did they fly here from Africa? How did they get here from Asia? Why are all these Chinese nationals here all of a sudden? What are these people doing here from Syria? I saw they were interviewed from Syria with tactical gear. So who's facilitating all of this? Are these NGOs? Are these individuals doing this for political, economic, or terrorist reasons? I mean, it just is very scary. And then to think about diseases, think about what they could be bringing in. We know drugs. I just did a little research on the drug overdose deaths. It just hit a record last year. 109,000 Americans died of drug overdoses, and about 70% is fentanyl related. And, you know, that's coming in through the southern border.
And again, we could go down such a big rabbit hole when it comes to just focusing on the southern border. But again, speaking with Jeff Crouere, and he wrote about how he believes that it's not what is the biggest national security threat, it's who, and it's Joe Biden. And we haven't even talked about what was revealed recently in the special counsel report by Robert Hur, that report says that Joe Biden willfully retained classified information. And then somehow it does mental gymnastics about him being mental, essentially, about his mental capacity to let him off the hook for it and not hold him to account. But where's all the outrage of when Donald Trump was accused of classified documents and, oh, what if he had nuclear orders or plans? And what about what Joe Biden had? How did he have the classified docs? How was he able to access them as a senator? Or, if he was given them as a vice president, he certainly didn't ever have the power to declassify them. It's strange how none of this is being talked about in your reputable mainstream media, right?
Yeah. I mean, Christy, you make a great point. So Joe Biden didn't have the authority to take these documents. He was senator. He was vice president. Those documents were kept in his garage next to his Corvette and a rake and WD-40 and some tools. Rummage sales going on, people in and out of there. Hunter was driving in and out of the Corvette. Who knows who had access to it? Then they had some in the Penn Biden Center. The visitor logs for the Penn Biden Center were destroyed, so we don't know who visited the Penn Biden Center that could have had access to these documents. He had some at his home, and all these different places were nowhere near as secure as Mar-a-Lago, where President Trump had them locked. There was Secret Service there protecting those documents, and he was president, so he could take the documents and declassify the documents. He always talks about the Presidential Records Act. So a difference in the ability of the two to take the records, and then, of course, how they were treated. President Trump's home was raided. President Trump was prosecuted. Joe Biden gets a pass because he's old and senile, and he couldn't possibly stand a trial. So if he can't go through a trial, how can he be president?
How is he leading our country?
Right. I mean, how is that possible? I mean, he's mentally incompetent, too mentally incompetent to stand trial, but then he can run the biggest country on earth, the most powerful country on earth, in the most important position on the planet, president of the United States. That is crazy. Just really, again, alarm bells should be going off for Americans.
Well, the propaganda puppets all got their memo to call it grotesque that special counsel Hur brought up his mental capacity. But this is a case where they lost either way. Either he didn't have the mental capacity or memory to willfully do anything sinister with these classified documents, or he and therefore not fit to be president, or he did and he should be prosecuted. I mean, so they lose either way with this, which is, I guess, why the Biden administration was so upset about that detail being included. And they're still refusing, to my knowledge, they're still refusing the 5-hour transcript for review. The DOJ just does whatever it wants now, it seems. But we've listed a couple of examples, his carelessness with national security when it comes to classified docs, and also his not only desire to protect our country with borders, but his actual opposite of that. Anything that Texas does to try and secure our borders, he fights them in court about. He wants these borders open. And we have terrorists coming in. We have Chinese nationals coming in. We don't even know how many have come in, period, because we don't know all the gotaways, like we said before. Is there anything else that you think that viewers would need to know about Joe Biden being a national security threat?
Well, I think when we look at the world, when Donald Trump was president, we had prosperity here and peace abroad. There were no wars going on. Now, after 3 years of Joe Biden, Christy, we've got a war in Ukraine. We've got a war in Israel. We've got Venezuela saber rattling, North Korea saber rattling, China threatening Taiwan. The world is ablaze. I mean, we have a very dangerous situation. They're talking about nuclear war, possibly. We're talking about getting more involved in the Middle East. They're talking today about NATO troops in Ukraine. I mean, this is getting out of control. And as all this is going on, recruitment in our military is down because people don't want to serve in a military under woke leadership and under Joe Biden as commander in chief. So our military numbers are going down. Our equipment is not at the level it should be because we send everything to Ukraine. And then you've got all these wars that are breaking out. Donald Trump had negotiated peace deals called the Abraham Accords, where Israel had made peace with 4 Arab nations. Peace was breaking out in the region. Now the region is total conflict. It could be exploding any minute. And we've got a mentally incompetent president at the helm who is doing nothing to try to resolve any of this, just making it worse. So I think that is also a national security threat. Nuclear war is a national security threat, big time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we would be here all night if we went over all of the reasons of why we should be concerned with Joe Biden at the helm. So let's switch gears and for some good news that I know that you know is good or feel is good news because of this article you shared earlier. You said that Ronna McDaniel must go, and she's gone. She has resigned. So, what are your thoughts on that, and what do you think is going to happen with that?
Well, I want to take credit for her leaving, Christine.
There it is.
It was all me.
Author and Town Hall, Jeff.
Yes.
GOP in turmoil. Ronna must go now, and she's gone. He made it happen. Jeff made it happen.
I've been calling for this, and I'd gotten so disgusted after the Republicans lost a special election in New York. Another special election. They've been losing so many special elections. They got rid of George Santos, so their majority in the House is shrinking.
Yeah.
She is at the helm. They're not raising money. The Democrats are outraising them online, party organizations, state organizations. She is spending money on things she shouldn't be spending money on, limos and perks, hotel accommodations. So I just said it's got to happen. We've got to get rid of her. She is a disaster. She's been there 7 years and they've been losing. So I think Donald Trump really pushed her out, and I think he said it was time for her to go. So he is supporting a guy who was chair of North Carolina, Patrick Whatley, and his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, to be co-chair. And I think it's going to bring some new energy. I think they're going to have some new ideas, and I think it's going to be an improvement. It can't be much worse than Ronna Romney McDaniel. I don't know why they would have ever appointed someone who was of Mitt Romney.
Thank you for saying that, because that's all I can think of when we see her is like, why did they ever trust her to begin with? My goodness. But it's funny, Jeff, when you go on Twitter and all you have to do is search the term RNC, and instead of a bunch of pictures of Ronna McDaniel, do you want to take a stab at who you see?
For RNC? Wow.
I'm just saying, by when you punch in RNC in X, I won't do that to you. I won't put you on the spot. I'll just tell you. When you punch in RNC, instead of seeing Ronna McDaniel, a bunch of posts about her, Scott Presler. Everywhere, Scott Presler. And I don't know how much you know about him, but he has just been running around, really feet on the ground, huge registration effort. And he's been ignored. He's been ignored by Ronna. He's been ignored by the RNC. And he is doing what everyone should. Boots on the ground, getting so many people registered to vote, encouraging them to vote Republican, and just ignored. So it's interesting that when you search, people are for the people. People are for the people that are out of the system and are just taking.
I'm glad you mentioned him, because he is a type of leader that Ronna McDaniel should have been. I mean, he's doing workshops. He came down here and did a workshop a few months ago, telling people how to get involved and how to register voters and how to turn around Republican numbers here. This is a red state, but the Democrats outnumber the Republicans. So Republicans need to get a better job of registering more voters. So he came down here, did a good workshop, and he's just a ball of energy. So I'm very impressed by him, and I think he's awesome. And but he just shows up and does the work. And what is the RNC doing? They're having meetings, they're traveling, they're going on vacation.
Yeah. They are busy. They're busy trying to raise money. It all goes back to the money. That's the problem. There's so much corruption at every level, because it always ends up being all about the money. I mean, I think it was very interesting, that leaked phone call that came out with Kerry Lake, because he essentially admits that there's a shadow group, if you will. and it comes down to what they can make out of it. And it's just sickening. And we need to dig out this corruption, no matter what side it's on, no matter who people say they are. It's got to stop. We can't have this kind of corruption, because if not, this is America's last chance. Do you like that segue there? This is America's last chance.
I like it. So, I just wanted to mention one thing about the fundraising. You're so right, Christy, because I get so many appeals for donations. And whenever I see it's from the RNC or any affiliated group with the RNC, I just trash it, because I've got no confidence in them. I've got no interest in supporting the corruption that they had been going on there. So now maybe with new leadership, people will feel confident in donating again to the RNC, because their numbers had been going down. Nobody wanted to donate while Ronna McDaniel was at the helm. So
yeah, I think it really comes down to we do need to, I think, support individual candidates as opposed to these groups, because we see groups there's in general, like anytime there's a group, you got to be a little bit leery, because we've seen it with NGOs, how they've been corrupted, and we've seen it in both parties, both the Democratic National Committee and the RNC have corruption. And so, maybe we just need to get back to people, like, just no matter what label they are, support the people that you can trust, and odds are there'll be a less ability for them to launder or whatever it else is they do with all this money. But I want to make sure that we hit your book, because again, there's so many of these topics we could talk about forever. But America's Last Chance, what can you tell me about this book?
Well, Christy, people can order it. There's a link on my website, which is my last name, crouere.net, CROUERE.net. And I wrote that as a way to let people know that, in my opinion, Donald Trump was America's last chance. And Donald Trump is essential to saving this country because of his focus on America first, putting our country before this globalist, neocon, warmongering agenda. And now I'm working on my sequel to that. So I'll have a new book out in about 2-3 months, which is going to focus on this upcoming election and the fact that this is more important than ever. And really, I think our country's future is at stake. I cannot imagine us surviving another 4 years of Joe Biden and the policies that he's instituted while he's been president. Everything has been so disastrous: the economy, the border, foreign policy, the military, crime, drugs. There's not one thing that he's done right, Christy. Everything has failed, and we cannot afford. The whole climate agenda, I think, is a hoax. Everything that he's pushing as far as EVs, and people are hurting. My listeners are hurting. People that I talk to, they're having a hard time. And we can't continue down this road. So we're at a point where this election is about saving America, in my opinion.
And as your book so aptly is titled, it is America's Last Chance. So as you see, I've been talking to Jeff Crouere, and you can find him at crouere.net, CROUERE.net, and get his book on Amazon, America's Last Chance. And it is such a pleasure to catch up with you. And I hope we can take you up on that offer to actually meet you in person when we go on our little road trip. We'll make a pit stop and visit Jeff there in New Orleans. You never told me if I'm not supposed to say it that way or not.
There's so many ways you can say it. Nolans, New Orleans, New Orleans. Just don't say New Orleans. Because if you say New Orleans, then we'll know you're a tourist. But if you say New Orleans, Nolans, that is acceptable. Not New Orleans. New Orleans.
Good to know, because my husband is from Baltimore, and he always said, everybody, just when I visit his family, it's Baltimore. It's like, it's not Baltimore, So it's funny. Every place has their way of saying things. Well, Jeff, it has been a pleasure. And keep us updated on your next book. I just need to get a book out. Like, I've got like a paragraph or two. And that's my goal.
Well, wait, you've got a 4-month-old, so you're doing a show. You're impressing the hell out of me. So you got your hands full.
I do, but I really feel like I have a story to tell, and I just need to get it done. Maybe I'm doing other things. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. But I want to learn from people like you because you're putting them out. You're doing great work for Town Hall, and so I'm always up for anyone that can mentor me on how I can get my story out. So thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Christy. Hope to see you soon.
You too. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me because this is the 5th show I've been on today. Started out with Emerald Robinson. You can watch that at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then I did 4 interviews today. So yeah, you won't see me tomorrow. It's okay. I did so many today because I have to be out tomorrow. But thank you for watching. If you're watching later instead of joining me live, that's cool too. And I appreciate your support. Share the message. Jeff's a great guy. Check out his book. And yeah, that's going to do it for me. And so now I'm going to bring up my little out because it's a strange world we're living in right now. We're trying to navigate through. So let's end with this strange way to say goodbye. All right.